Hey everyone, welcome to a new Amazing Dinosaurs video. Today we are doing a collection of Jurassic World Dominion versus Camp Cretaceous, and we're going to be setting them up to face off against each other. So why don't we get started with the largest ones. This is the first Jurassic World Dominion figure, and it is a super colossal Atrociraptor. This figure has the white body with the two tones of brown striping and the bright red eyes. And this one's gonna go on the Dominion side. On the Camp Cretaceous side, we've actually got two super colossal figures. This first one is Carnotaurus Toro with the clay red coloring, the two horns on the top of its head, and the battle damage on its nose. The other super colossal figure for Camp Cretaceous is the giant Indominus Rex figure. This one is one of my favorite super colossal figures. It has the all gray body with the orange eyes and these super long teeth. Now let's grab some more. This is the Jurassic World Dominion Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. This figure has a larger head than many T-Rexes and a dark brown body. We're gonna put that on the Dominion side. Now let's grab that Camp Cretaceous T-Rex. This is the Epic Roarin' T-Rex. And you can see that it is a much lighter color compared to the Jurassic World Dominion T-Rex. And best of all, has a button that activates its jaw. Let's set this down to face off with the Dominion T-Rex. Back on the Dominion side, we're gonna go with this Giganotosaurus figure. This Giganotosaurus is slightly smaller than the Dominion T-Rex, but it has this awesome spine running along its back and the bright green color all over its body. Check out these action attacks too. And we're gonna set that down right next to the T-Rex. Next for Camp Cretaceous, we're gonna go with the Camp Cretaceous Spinosaurus figure. It features a light brown skin color over most of its body, much like the T-Rex. It also has the red coloring on its face and on its spine, as well as the darker brown on the top. Let's set this down right next to the Camp Cretaceous T-Rex. For Dominion, we're next gonna go with this battle damage Allosaurus figure. This dinosaur is the smallest figure we've seen so far, but the coolest part is the battle damage right on the side that you can open up and show the stomach that's right underneath it. It's pretty gross. Plus, there is a jaw-chopping action too. We're gonna put this right in between the Giganotosaurus and the T-Rex. For Camp Cretaceous, let's go ahead and grab this Scorpius Rex figure. This figure is quite a bit smaller than the Spinosaurus, but still quite large in comparison to many other figures. It features the dark body with the brighter underbelly, and it has two action buttons, one for the jaw and one to slash the arms. And we'll set it down right in between the T-Rex and the Spinosaurus. Next up for Jurassic World Dominion is the Therizinosaurus figure. This dinosaur is actually an herbivore, but it sure looks scary with these huge claws on its hands. And it has a button on its tail for a chomping action. And let's go ahead and set it right next to the Giganotosaurus. For Camp Cretaceous, we're gonna grab this Carnotaurus Toro figure. Now we actually already have a Carnotaurus Toro figure in this collection. It is this super colossal way back here, and you can notice that there's actually quite a bit of difference in the coloring. But it's still pretty awesome, and it has a jaw-chomping action too. And we're gonna place that right next to the Spinosaurus. For Dominion, next is the Siamosaurus dinosaur figure. This figure stands on all four legs and has a spine kind of like the Spinosaurus figure over here on Camp Cretaceous, and you can use the tail to move the head up and down as well as open and close its jaw. Let's place this dinosaur on the front lines of the Dominion side here. For the next Camp Cretaceous, we're gonna grab this Albertosaurus dinosaur figure. As you can see, it's a little bit smaller than the Carnotaurus Toro figure, and it features an all-green body with orange detailing and an attack button on its tail for chomping its jaw. Now let's place it right in front of the Spinosaurus. For Dominion next, we're gonna go with the Scorpio Venator figure. I got this figure pretty recently. I actually have an older version that's colored differently. This one is in a dark brown and orange coloring, and it has an attack that you activate by pressing down on its body. And we're gonna put the Scorpio Venator right there on the Dominion side. This is a Cryolophosaurus for Camp Cretaceous. It's got a dark blue body with some red and white on it. It has adjustable arms and legs and a tail that you can move around to move its head. And let's go ahead and put it right there next to the Albertosaurus. Here is the Sound Surge Indominus Rex figure for Jurassic World Dominion. It is the first Indominus Rex on the Dominion side in this collection, and it has the sound effects that you can activate with the button. Let's put it up right behind the Spinosaurus. This Baryonyx figure is gonna be part of the Camp Cretaceous side. It features the bright green body with some brown along the top of its head and its neck, and it has the slide lever action for sound effects and chomping motion. Now let's put it right next to the Cryolophosaurus. These next two figures for Jurassic World Dominion are both basic figures, so they can't do much. But this first one is an Atrociraptor, pretty similar to the super colossal one we've got in the back here. And we're gonna put it right in the back over here. And this other one is a Pyroraptor figure, which is actually the first of this collection. And we're gonna put that right in front of the Atrociraptor. I've got a big old Stegosaurus figure for Camp Cretaceous. This one features the dark blue-gray coloring with the darker striping along its back. And it has the attack button. When you press down on its spine, it swings its tail. Now let's set this in the back here next to the Carnotaurus figure. Next for Dominion is the Sound Surge T-Rex figure. Just like the Indominus Rex figure back there, it has a sound effect button right on its back. Let's set that way in the back here next to the Atrociraptor. This next figure is the Camp Cretaceous Ceratosaurus figure. It features the classic gray, dark blue, and red detailing for the Ceratosaurus figures, and it has the slide lever action on its back for the sound effects and chomping. Let's put this down right next to the Baryonyx. Here's another Sound Surge figure for Dominion. This is the Carnotaurus version. And compared to the Camp Cretaceous Carnotaurus Toro figure, this one has a lot more simple coloring and design. There's only a little bit of gray detailing on the top of its head, and the rest of its body is just a plain red with a little bit of white underneath its chin. Now let's hear that sound effect as we set it down. For Camp Cretaceous, I've got the Sarcosuchus figure. I believe Mattel has released two versions of this. The other one is a greenish color, but this one is in the bright blue with some brighter detailing along the top of its body and the purple. And it has the tail that can control the head and the jaw. Now let's set this figure up right in front of the Ceratosaurus. And here is our final Sound Surge figure for the Dominion side. This is the Giganotosaurus version. Like the other Sound Surge figures, it's pretty basic in design, although this one does have better detailing and coloring. And of course, it's got the sound effects, so let's hear it. Next up, for Camp Cretaceous, I believe this one is called the Oranosaurus. It features posable legs, tail, and it has this slide lever on its back to activate its head. And we're gonna set it down in the back, right next to the feet of the giant super colossal Indominus Rex. Here is an Iguanodon figure for the Dominion side. This herbivore actually came as a set alongside this Scorpiovenator figure. And it features sound effects and an attack move when you press down on its body. And we're gonna set it down right here. For Camp Cretaceous, we've got a pretty sizable figure. This is another herbivore, and it is a Sinoceratops. This figure is in the gray with tan detailing and a little bit of yellow along the front of its head. And you can move the tail around to control the head. This is the Ichthyovenator dinosaur for the Dominion side. It's got a green body and a brighter green spine and tail. And like many of the Dominion figures, it has an attack when you press down on its body. Let's go ahead and put this right next to the Giganotosaurus. We're getting down to our last few here. This is a Camp Cretaceous Parasaurolophus figure. It features the yellow body with the purple and reflective pink coloring all over, and you can use its tail to control its head. And we're gonna place it down right next to the Sinoceratops. For Dominion, here is the Hammond Collection Baryonyx figure. It features the classic coloring for Baryonyxes in the dark blue with some gray and then the white striping, and of course is extremely posable all over its body. Now let's set this down right in front of the Giganotosaurus figure. And here is the last Camp Cretaceous figure. This is the Ankylosaurus. There are a few different versions of this Ankylosaurus. This one comes in the bright blue coloring with the yellow underbelly, and it has the slide lever action on its back to swing its tail back and forth. Now let's place this down right in front of the Baryonyx over here. And our final figure in this entire collection, going to the Dominion side, is this Dimetrodon figure. This figure features the dark green brown coloring along its body and then the bright orange and brown spine. And let's go ahead and put that right next to this Ichthyovenator. Now, which side do you think wins this versus competition? The Dominion side or the Camp Cretaceous side? Let me know in the comments below. Welcome to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we are checking out a bunch of dinosaur figures that were released as part of the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom toy line. I've got tons of these dinosaurs, so let's dig in. First up, we've got some new ones that I just bought that we're gonna check out first. The first one is the Indoraptor. So this Indoraptor figure is probably medium sized, not as big as most of the T-Rex figures. It's got the all black body with the gold striping right along the side, just like the movies. And this figure is super posable. You can move basically every joint in its body as you could in real life. You can open the jaw, the neck, the arms, the legs, the tail. It's got 2 joints. It's got some quills on its back and on the top of its head too. And of course, it's got those red eyes. Next up, we've got the Dino DNA Lab Kit with the Dimorphodon. Let's open it up and check it out. All right, here we go. So here is the Dimorphodon. It's gray in color, and then it's got that maroon purplish coloring on the bottom of its wings. And it's pretty adjustable. And we've got the Dino DNA kit. Comes with the slime too. Let's go ahead and put this in. All right, here's the slime, and it goes into the canister. Oops, didn't quite fit. And then you stick this dinosaur skull into the slime. And there you go. It is now on display. Plus, you can actually open up the canister to let the goo slide out of the side. That's pretty cool. And next up, we've got another Dino DNA Lab Kit. This is the Velociraptor pack, so let's open it up and check it out. Here is the Velociraptor. It looks like it is in a sneaking pose, crawling along the ground. It's got a light green color, and it's pretty posable with all its limbs and jaw. And of course, you've got the DNA kit right here. Let's put that slime in. And finally, let's put the skull in. Looks like this kit comes with the same skull. And there we go. Exact same as the other one. It's got the opening on the side to let out the goo. And you can close it back up and put it on display. Next up, we've got the Legacy Collection Extreme Chomping Spinosaurus. This has the dark green body and the iconic red along the spine and the face too. And of course, it's got that chomping action. This is the Thrash and Throw T-Rex. This dinosaur can be controlled by moving its tail all around to control its neck, its head, and its jaw. Right over here, we've got the giant Mosasaurus figure. They've actually come out with a new one since then that has different coloring, but this is the original one for Fallen Kingdom. This one has a lighter blue coloring on the side and the top compared to the newer one, and the white underbelly. And on this figure, the tail actually doesn't move. That's only with the newer Mosasaurus figures. Here we've got the basic figure of the Indoraptor. It has the same awesome coloring as the one we opened up earlier, but the limbs cannot move around as much. As you can see, you can only move them somewhat. Can't move the elbows, you can't move the knees. It's kind of stuck in this crawling, sneaking pose. This is the Action Attack Suchomimus. It's got a bright blue color on the bottom and the sides, and the yellow detailing on the top. And it's got one action button on its back for chomping. Next up is the Rorivore Allosaurus. It's got the gray body with yellow detailing on top, and you can move the arms and the legs, and there's an action button on its back for chomping the jaw. This is the Roarivore Ceratosaurus. It has a light yellow body with the black and red detailing on the top and the iconic horn right there on its nose. Plus, it's got an action button on its back to chomp the jaw. Right here, we've got a basic figure of the Dilophosaurus. It's got the soft green body with the red frills. And you can open and close the frills and move the limbs a little bit, but they're not very adjustable. This is another basic figure from Jurassic World. This is a Velociraptor with the orange body and the brown top. And just like the Dilophosaurus, the limbs are slightly adjustable, but it's pretty basic. Way down here, we've got an extreme chompin' T-Rex. This is part of the Legacy collection, I believe. And it has the orange body with the light underbelly. It's got the button on the top of its head for chomping. Here's one that I actually haven't shown that much. This is the Tyrannosaurus Rex anatomy kit. As you can see, you can take it all apart and check out its insides. See, it's got, I think that might be the stomach, that's the intestines. You can see the muscle of the tail, you can see the bone behind it. And even on its leg that you can take off, you can take this apart and see what's inside. So there you've got the bone, got more muscle. It's pretty cool. This is the Action Attack Carnotaurus. It's got the dark red body, lighter underbelly, and it's almost like a purple color along the top with all those bumps along its spine. And this dinosaur has a jaw snapping action. It's really fast. This dinosaur is the Action Attack Stegosaurus. It has a light blue body with a darker blue along the top, and this figure has a tail swinging action. Next up, we've got the Roarivore Sinoceratops. This dinosaur has some pretty cool patterning along its whole body. I really like that orange right on the top. And this figure has a head shaking action for roaring. This is a pretty big winged dinosaur. This is the Roarivore Pteranodon. This figure has a dark blue body with the red and white wings, and it's got a button on its back for the wing flapping. This is the Legacy Collection Velociraptor with the jumping action. The legs are spring-loaded, so when you press down on its body, it'll actually spring up into the air. And this is a super bright Velociraptor. I love the bright orange on this figure. Next up is the Battle Damage Triceratops. This is a smaller figure. It's green all over its body. It's got a little bit of light brown on the top. And most importantly, it's got the battle damage on the side that you can flip open and closed. Looks like we got a few more Pteranodons in here. First one is a light gray color. It's got some dark blue detailing on the wings and on the face, and it's got a button on its back to flap its wings. And this second Pteranodon is a dark green color with yellow accenting. And just like the other, it has a button on its back for flapping the wings. Here is another basic figure. This is Velociraptor Blue. This figure is about medium sized and it's fairly adjustable, but since it's a basic figure, you only can do so much with the arms and the legs. Over here, we've got the Roarivore Baryonyx. This has a light brown body with a dark blue-gray coloring on top, and the coolest part is this reflective blue right along the top of its head. Plus, this figure has an action button on its back for chomping and roaring. Here is another Baryonyx figure, but this one I believe was actually part of a Lava Surge playset. This one has the bright orange coloring on the top of its nose, while the rest of its body is light brown and dark blue-gray, just like the other one. And of course, it's got the action button on its back for chomping and roaring. Here is the Roarivore Metriacanthosaurus. This has a green-yellow coloring along the side and bottom, with a darker green along the top, and it's got a button on its back for chomping. Right over here is the Roarivore Triceratops. This has a clay red color with the brown detailing along the top, and it's got a button on its back for the roaring. This figure is the Roarivore Ankylosaurus. It has the dark brown underbelly, It's got some green detailing along its shell, and the gray and the white spikes too. And this figure has the button for swinging its tail back and forth. Let's see how many battle damage figures we have in here. I think I found 4. I think that's about it. Let's check them out. This first one is a Pachycephalosaurus, the green body and the orange top, and of course the battle damage right there on the side. Next up, we've got a yellow Velociraptor with brown detailing along the top and the battle damage right on the side that you can open and close. As well as another Velociraptor, looks like Velociraptor blue with the battle damage on the side. And finally, a green Herrerasaurus with the battle damage on the side and a little bit of orange-brown detailing along the top. We've got tons of Velociraptors in here. Let's check these out. This first one is a blue and gold Velociraptor, and on its head is actually pretty reflective, which is awesome. Then up next, we've got the classic Velociraptor blue figure, and of course you can open and close its jaw and move many of its limbs around. Then we've got this red Velociraptor and this green Velociraptor. Both have movable limbs, and you can open and close both of their jaws too. Here we've got a few Dilophosauruses. This first one is light green with the yellow and red frills in the front. It's got some brown coloring on its back. And this second Dilophosaurus is a dark brown color with blue detailing on the back, and its frills are white and like a dark green color. Next up, we've got the green Minmi figure. This figure has spikes all over the top of its shell for protective covering. And it looks like we've got a couple more Dimorphodons in here too. This one has the gray and maroon coloring, just like the one we saw earlier at the beginning of the video. And this figure is dark green and has orange and red coloring along its wings. That's pretty cool. I definitely like this coloring better. This, I believe, is a Protoceratops. It's got the light blue coloring with the yellow detailing along the top. Here is another jumpin' Velociraptor figure. This one is a bright blue coloring, and just like the other Velociraptor figure, you can press down on its body to bend the legs, and then you let go to let it spring up into the air. Next up is the Stygimoloch Stiggy. This figure has the super hard head with the spikes right behind it, and you can move its arms and its legs and its tail too. We've also got a few Gallimimuses in here. This first one is a blue-gray color with darker coloring along the top, and it has adjustable legs, arms, and a neck. This second figure is a bit different. Its coloring is a bit more detailed all over its body, plus it's got an action button on its back to run its legs. And the final one is a light tan Gallimimus with darker brown detailing along the top, and just like the others, you can move the legs, the arms, and the neck. This is the Legacy Collection Pachycephalosaurus, and this figure has the head ramming action. And last but not least is the Proceratosaurus. It's a smaller figure with a dark brown coloring, with a lighter underbelly, and it's got that red detailing right along its nose, and you can open and close its jaw and move its arms and legs. Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we are checking out my collection of the rarest Jurassic Park and Jurassic World figures. First, I just bought some Jurassic Park sets off of eBay. The first one is the Alan Grant with double-barreled Bola launcher from the Jurassic Park New Series 2. Let's check this out. So there's Dr. Alan Grant. We've got a variety of tools here, as well as a little dinosaur. And way up at the top here, you can see that it's some type of claw contraption or something used for trapping dinosaurs, it looks like. Now, I'm not gonna open this up because this is a collectible and I wanna keep it in this condition since it's unopened right now. But I still have another figure from eBay that I just bought that we're gonna check out as well. This is the Compsognathus, or at least I think that's how you pronounce it, codenamed Lasher from Jurassic Park Chaos Effect series. And this dinosaur is super colorful. It's got some light blue-green over its body with the black, it's got some yellow, it's got some orange, it's got blue right on its nose. So this will be super cool to add to my collection too. And as you can see, it is a combination dinosaur of a Compsognathus, a Stegosaurus, and an African tree frog. That is pretty wild. As you'll notice with basically all of these figures are discontinued, so you won't be able to find them new anywhere. You might be able to find them on eBay or something like that. But this first one is a Jurassic Park Allosaurus. And this figure actually has multiple pieces of battle damage that you can completely take off. And this front battle damage actually has multiple layers. You can take off the ribs to see the stomach underneath, and then you can just cover it back up with the skin, just like that. You can also remove the thigh on this dinosaur, see the flesh underneath, as well as on the tail. You can rip off a piece of the tail and see the bone and flesh underneath too. Back here, we've got one of the original Tyrannosaurus Rexes from Jurassic Park. This figure has some pretty unique coloring over its body. It's got the clay red with the black spots and stripes. It's got the lighter underbelly. It originally had sound effects, and its whole body is a soft rubber, which is a common theme with the older figures. Right here, we've got a T-Rex from Jurassic Park: The Lost World. This is the Thrasher Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it also has a soft rubber body aside from the arms and the legs. And with this T-Rex, you can actually wiggle the tail to control the face and the neck. Move it back and forth. Alright, I know you've been keeping your eye on these huge T-Rexes on the side. This super colossal T-Rex is one of a kind, and that is because it is actually custom colored. It's got a light tan body all around. It's got some interesting shadowing and detail all over. It's also got some super dark red eyes and some interestingly colored teeth too. So those are darker teeth than what's normal. So while you may be able to get a super colossal T-Rex, you will not be able to buy one that is this color. Next up for the one-of-a-kind super colossal dinosaurs is this T-Rex. And this has some of the craziest custom coloring out of any figures that I've seen. It looks like a fire T-Rex. It's got the bright red over its belly and sides. It's got the glowing orange right next to the black, and then the black top. This is a super cool one-of-a-kind T-Rex. And for our final one-of-a-kind, custom-colored, super colossal dinosaurs is this Velociraptor. This, I think, has some of the best custom coloring out of any figure that I have. It is so detailed and so well done. It's got the black body with these brown stripes, and there's even these little gold specks along its brown stripes as well. My favorite part though are the eyes. These are incredibly detailed. It's like a gold eye, but then it's got red towards the center and then the black pupil. You will not be able to find another super colossal Velociraptor with this coloring anywhere. Here we've got a Jurassic Park Stegosaurus with battle damage right on the shoulder. This figure has a somewhat soft rubber body. The tail is especially rubbery, so you can swing that back and forth with those spikes at the end. And it has a very natural green and brown and light tan coloring all over its body, so it really blends into the jungle. This giant T-Rex, I believe, is the Jurassic Park Lost World Bull Tyrannosaurus Rex. This T-Rex has some pretty unique coloring with this green-blue color on the sides. It's got some light brown on its legs as well as along the top of its body. It's got some marble eyes that are green. And I don't have the piece anymore, unfortunately, but originally it was able to swallow, I think, a cage that had a man inside. So this thing could actually swallow humans or dinosaurs or whatever you want, and you can release it from the stomach right in there. Next up of my rarest figures is this Jurassic Park Lost World Pteranodon that was nicknamed the Steel Beak. This figure's pretty old and fragile now, but it's one of the few figures that has a fabric wing on it, as well as spring-loaded joints for the wings, so it can swing forward and it swings back, just like that. Next up is the Jurassic Park Lost World Parasaurolophus. This figure's in pretty good condition for how old it is. It's got the light tan body with the darker brown stripes along the top, and this figure actually has an action button on its back used for running. Here we've got the original Jurassic Park Triceratops, and this figure has some huge battle damage on its side. You can see some flesh and some bone in it as well. This figure also has the soft rubbery body like many of the super old figures, and it has an action that when you squeeze its stomach, it swings its head upward. Here is a dinosaur figure that, although it's more recent, it's still pretty hard to find and pretty rare. This is an extreme chomping Spinosaurus from Jurassic World. This figure has the dark ground body with the light underbelly and the red spine and face. And of course, it comes with the button at the top of its head for the chomping. Right here is another one of the original Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rexes. This is a smaller figure. It probably only stands about 9 or 10 inches tall. It's got some battle damage on the side, and it has the soft rubbery body all throughout aside from its arms and its legs. This super bright dinosaur, I believe, is from Jurassic Park The Lost World and is actually a Chaos Effect Ankyloraniodon. This figure has some super bright colors, bright green and the bright purple, plus it's got a super bright orange eye as well. And there's actually a hidden action button on its back used to move its tail. Over here is another more recent figure from Jurassic World, but is still pretty rare and pretty hard to find. This is the hybrid Indominus Rex. It's got the bright red over its body, it's got some gold, and the classic gray color for the Indominus Rex. Plus it has a few action buttons, the first that you press down to stick out its spines, and the second to pull down the arm, and it roars. Check this one out. Here is another discontinued Jurassic World figure. This figure is fairly rare and is actually a hybrid Tyrannosaurus Rex. Check out these spines that pop out on the top of its head and on its back. Plus, another unique feature about this Tyrannosaurus Rex is this unique coloring right along the side of its body. And the action button that springs out the spines also activates the jaw. This is another Chaos Effect dinosaur from Jurassic Park. This is the Velociraptorix, and this dinosaur has some really unique features. What stands out the most to me are these wings right on the Velociraptor's arms. That's super interesting. And it's got these spikes right along the top of its back and its head as well. And this Velociraptorix has an action that when you pull the leg, it swings its arms up and down and its head moves as well. Next up, we've got another figure from Jurassic World. This is a hybrid special edition Ankylosaurus. And the most special part about this figure is that it actually has part of its shell that you can take off to reveal the normal shell underneath. This removable shell is super bright and reflective. It's got some bright green and purple in the spikes as well. And you can just plop it right back on. Next up in my rare figures, we've got the Jurassic Park Amargospinus. I think this figure looks somewhat similar to the unopened figure that we saw at the very beginning of this video. It's got the long neck, it's got the spines all over, and it's got a few action buttons actually that when you move the leg, it actually sticks up its spines on its back, on its neck, and it opens its jaws too. Next up is the Jurassic Park Lost World Chasmosaurus. This figure looks similar to a Triceratops. It's got many of the same features. It's got the horns in the front. And this figure also has an action that when you pull its leg, it moves its head up and down. This is another Jurassic World hybrid figure. This, I believe, is a hybrid between a Stegosaurus and a Triceratops. But it's also got some super bright and unique coloring with the bright blue on its side, the dark blue on its legs, and the gold right along the top and its horns too. Here is another Jurassic World hybrid figure. This is a hybrid between a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a Dilophosaurus. And once again, it's also got some super bright coloring with the bright orange on its sides. It's got some gold along the top too. This is a Jurassic Park Spinosaurus, and let me tell you, I think it looks a lot different than the Spinosauruses that Jurassic World is releasing now. But it's still got the huge spine along its back, of course, and it has some pretty bright coloring. It's got the bright green along its body with the gray as well. Next up is a fairly large figure from Jurassic Park. This is a Utah Raptor. It's got the orange body with the black detailing along the top and the lighter underbelly. And a nice detail on this figure is that you can actually move the claw up and down on its feet. Over here, we've got a few Jurassic Park Baryonyx figures. These are quite a bit different than the new Jurassic World Baryonyxes that are being released now. Their bodies are a lot more thin, they've got shorter legs, and it looks like they've got longer necks too. Next up, we've got two Velociraptors from Jurassic Park with different features. This first one is a lot smaller, and you can move the arms and the legs, but there's no action button. But on this second Velociraptor figure, there's an action button that when you move the leg, you can hear a sound effect. It's really quiet, so you probably can't hear it on the camera. But its head also used to move up and down as well. Here are some other interesting dinosaurs from Jurassic World. This is a Dilophosaurus with battle damage on the side, and it is super brightly colored. We've also got a smaller Spinosaurus with battle damage on the side that you can control by moving the tail around too. And for the last two dinosaurs of my rare collection, first we've got a Jurassic Park baby T-Rex with a broken leg feature. And we've also got this, I think it might be a Baryonyx, it might be an Allosaurus, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's from Jurassic World, and it's got the battle damage on the side, and the tail controls the head too. This is a collection of Predator vs. Predator figures from Jurassic World, and we're going to be comparing all of them against each other. The first two figures to face off in this collection is this Spinosaurus and this battle damaged T-Rex. Let's check out the Spinosaurus first. This is the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus, so this one's actually pretty hard to find nowadays. It's got the huge front arms, it's got a long and narrow snout with a lot of teeth, and this figure is quite a bit larger than its opponent, the battle damaged T-Rex. This figure is a bright orange color. It's got battle damage slashes painted all over its body, even right on its face and on its chin. Now this T-Rex has tiny arms compared to the Spinosaurus, but it's still got the same jaw-chomping action. Next up for the versus is this T-Rex versus this Allosaurus figure. Let's start with the T-Rex. This is the Jurassic World Dominion battle damage T-Rex. It's got a darker orange body than the T-Rex that we just saw, and you can turn the battle damage on and off with the click of a button, and overall it has some pretty cool detailing and darker shading. Now let's see what's different about this huge Allosaurus figure, also from Jurassic World Dominion. Now this figure also has battle damage on the side, but you can even open it up and move the ribs to show the stomach underneath. Now this Allosaurus is a little bit smaller than the T-Rex, but it still has an awesome button for jaw chomping and sound effects. Up next for our Predator competition is this Jurassic Park Utah Raptor versus this new Dino Trackers Endoraptor. Let's first check out this Endoraptor. It is super reflective, it's a dark blue color. I think it might be just around the same size as the Utah Raptor, but it's got some really cool actions. First, you can move its arms for some sound effects and a jaw-chomping action. And it's also got a button on its back for more jaw-chomping action. Now let's see how this super old Utah Raptor holds up. You can see that little Jurassic Park tattoo on its leg right there. Now this figure used to be battery operated, but unfortunately since it's so old, it doesn't work anymore. Like many of the vintage Jurassic Park figures, it has a soft rubbery skin, and it still has a chomping action when you press down on its tail. Next, let's go with a Carnotaurus versus an Albertosaurus. The Albertosaurus is a little bit smaller than the Carnotaurus, and it has much brighter coloring. It's got the orange stripe running down its side and the green body, and the tail twists back and forth to control the head and chomp the jaw. Now let's check out this bigger Carnotaurus figure. This figure is dark brown with a gray underbelly. It's got even smaller arms than a T-Rex does. And you'll notice that the Albertosaurus arms are a little bit bigger. And just like the Albertosaurus, the tail swivels back and forth to move the head and for a jaw-chomping action. For our next versus, let's grab this other Carnotaurus figure versus this Suchomimus. Let's start with the Carnotaurus. This figure is a bit smaller than the darker Carnotaurus that we just saw. The coloring overall is a lot more simplistic. There's not anywhere near as much shading. There's a little bit of white underneath its chin and some dark coloring on its neck and the top of its head. And the actions are a bit more simplistic too. There is one button at the top of its back for some sound effects. Let's compare that to this bright yellow Suchomimus figure. This Jurassic World figure stands a little bit taller than the Carnotaurus figure. It's got a huge spine that runs all the way from the head down to the tail. And just like the Spinosaurus, it has a long and narrow snout with a bunch of teeth on the inside. And this figure has two actions. The first is a jaw chomping action, and the second is a tail swinging action. Our next two predators are this huge Scorpius Rex figure and this even larger T-Rex figure. Let's start with the T-Rex figure. It's got a light brown body with the darker coloring along the top, and you can move all its limbs, and it has the single button on the top of its head for the chomping action. Now the Scorpius Rex has a few more features. First off, I love the detailing on this figure. There's some bumps. You can see this huge ridge running down its back. It's got these tiny little spikes on its elbows. And of course, it's got the poisonous quills on the end of its tail. And it still has two action buttons. The first moves its jaw, and check out those super awesome teeth. And the second button moves its arms for slashing. Our next two predators are first a Carcharodontosaurus versus a Cryolophosaurus. The Carcharodontosaurus is definitely a little bit bigger, but the Cryolophosaurus is a brighter yellow than the Carcharodontosaurus. Comparing the size, the Carcharodontosaurus is a little bit bigger, and the Cryolophosaurus is a brighter yellow color. It's got movable limbs, and you can use the tail to swing the head around. And the Carcharodontosaurus, though it's not as bright, it still has some bright orange running down its back and on its neck. And instead of the tail as the action button on this figure, there's a button on its back for a chomping action. Right here, we've got a Metriacanthosaurus versus an Allosaurus figure from Jurassic Park. Let's check out this vintage figure first. Now this Allosaurus looks quite a bit different from the new Jurassic World figures. It's got a different head shape and a slightly different body. But the cool thing about this figure is that there's multiple battle damage parts that you can take off of its body. Check that out, and even on its tail too. Look at all that battle damage. That is super cool. Now let's compare that with the Metriacanthosaurus. I believe this is from the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom era. It's pretty bright in color, and it's around the same size as the Allosaurus figure. And this one doesn't have any battle damage, but it does have an action button on its back to control the jaw. Before we continue on with the rest of the bin, let's actually open up this new Hammond Collection Concavinator. Alright, now I think I only have one other Concavinator figure in my entire collection, so I'm super happy to add this one. It looks like it has quite a few different colors on its body. It's mainly got this blue, and there's some bright orange, brown, light tan, and then a very dark red right around its eyes. And since it's a Hammond Collection figure, it doesn't have any action buttons, but its body is super posable. You can bend it at all of its limbs and joints. And its neck and head is especially posable, which I really like. All in all, I think this figure stands up to the quality of all of the other Hammond Collection figures. Next up for our Predator versus Predator, we've got another Carnotaurus versus an Allosaurus. The Carnotaurus figure is quite a bit larger than the Allosaurus, so let's check this one out first. Now this figure has a bright orange body with the gray underbelly. It's got the tiny little front arms, just like the figure we saw earlier, and it also has the tail that you can move back and forth to move the head and chomp the jaw. Now let's see what's different about this Allosaurus figure. I think this one is even brighter in color. It's got the yellow and two tones of blue. It's got bigger front arms than the Carnotaurus figure. It's also got a tiny little row of spines running down its back to its tail. And this figure has two action buttons. The first operates the jaw, and the second moves the arms up and down. The next two predators are this Dilophosaurus versus the Scorpiovenator. These figures are around the same size, but you'll see that the Dilophosaurus is a little bit longer. Now this Dilophosaurus is the basic edition, so there is no action button, You can move the limbs a little bit, and you can activate the frills. But sadly, that's pretty much it. Let's see how that compares against the Scorpiovenator. This figure is pretty brightly colored as well, and you can move all of the limbs. But this figure does have an action button. When you press down on its back, it activates the chomping action. Check out those sound effects too. Next, we've got the Siatsmicararum versus the Irritator. Between these two, the Siatsmicararum is definitely the larger dinosaur. It's got tons of spikes on its head, running all the way down to its back. And like many of the other figures we've seen so far, you can move the tail back and forth to move its head and chomp its jaw. Now let's check out its competitor, this Irritator. Although it's a little bit smaller, it still has some really cool coloring with the 2 tones of blue on the top. And on this figure, you can use the tail to move the head around as well, although you have to open and close the mouth manually. Let's keep on going. For our next versus, we've got a Ceratosaurus versus an Indoraptor, and see how much longer the Indoraptor is compared to the Ceratosaurus. This Indoraptor is the basic edition, so once again, there are no action buttons that you can press, but you can still move its arms, legs, and its tail, and it's still got some awesome spikes on its body. Let's see how the Ceratosaurus is different. It's got a dark green body with some black detailing on the top. This dinosaur seems a lot more bulkier in size. And of course, it's got an action at the top of its back for roaring and sound effects. This is the Baryonyx versus the Amber Collection Raptor. I think the Baryonyx is a little bit bigger, but this Raptor is so much more brighter. Because this figure is from the Amber Collection, there's a lot more attention to the coloring, and the limbs can be posed in many more different ways too. This figure is perfect for posing on a display shelf. Now let's check out its competitor, the Baryonyx. Because this figure isn't from the Amber Collection, there's not as much that you can pose on its body, but the cool part about this figure is that it has an action button on its back. Check out that chomping action. Now let's compare 2 very different dinosaurs. This is a Pteranodon versus an Allosaurus. This Pteranodon figure has foldable wings that you can open up, and it's probably a foot in length from wingtip to wingtip, and it's got a button on its back to flap the wings too. Plus, you can open and close its mouth manually. Now let's see this Allosaurus figure. This one is pretty simplistic in color. It has the gray on the sides and then the yellow detailing all along the top. Of course, it's got the iconic ridge right above its eye. And on this figure, there's one single action button for the jaw. These next 2 figures are smaller. I believe this one is called an Elaphrosaurus versus, if I remember correctly, the Rugops primus figure. The Elaphrosaurus has a long and narrow snout and is mostly tan. It's got some brown as well. But this other figure, it's got darker coloring as well, and you can move its tiny little arms and open and close its mouth. Up next, we've got 2 different raptor species. This first one is a Pyroraptor from Jurassic World Dominion, and this other one is, I believe, an Amber Collection Velociraptor. Just like many of the other Amber Collection figures, it is a lot more posable than many of the normal figures, and they did a pretty decent job with its coloring as well. And the Pyroraptor has some decent detailing. You can check out all those feather designs right there. And the coolest part, I think, about the Pyroraptor are these huge feathers right at the top of its head. And next, we've got a Jurassic World miniature T-Rex figure versus a Jurassic Park Velociraptor. Both these figures are pretty old, but this Velociraptor is the oldest. It's got a spring-loaded chomping action, and it features some pretty unique coloring that I don't think I have another Velociraptor that's colored like this. Now let's check out this other miniature T-Rex figure. This specific figure comes from an older line from Jurassic World. I think it was actually made by Hasbro, so it's got some battle damage right there on the side. And on this figure, you can move the tail back and forth and side to side to operate the jaw and the head. Today, I'm showing you my ultimate collection of Velociraptor versus Baryonyx versus Carnotaurus figures. Let's get started with these brand new ones that I just bought to add to this collection. First up, we've got Baryonyx Limbo from the Camp Cretaceous pack. Let's open it up. This is so cool. This is actually the first of this Baryonyx that I have in my collection. It's got a lime green body, it's got a darker green along the bottom of its back, and it's got some brown detailing on its neck, all the way to the top of its head. You can move all the limbs and the tail on this figure, and there is a slide lever action for roaring and the sound effects. Next up, we've got the Velociraptor from the Jurassic World Attack Pack. Let's check it out. This Velociraptor has some pretty unique coloring. It's got a dark blue body and a dark red detailing along the top, which is pretty unique. I don't know that I have another figure colored like this. And here we've got another Velociraptor, but this is actually from the Hammond collection. Let's open it up and check it out. This Velociraptor figure is even darker than the one that we just saw. It's got a dark green body with brown detailing on the tail, all over the back on its legs, and it's still got the lighter underbelly all the way to the chin. And since it's a Hammond collection figure, you'll notice that it is much more posable than a lot of the classic Velociraptor figures. You can move basically every limb on this figure. Let's dig into this bin now, and we're going to start with the Velociraptors over here on the left. The first one here is Velociraptor Delta from the Amber collection. You'll notice with all these Amber collection figures that they are very posable, just like the Hammond collection figures. And Velociraptor Delta here has some bright blue coloring with a lighter underbelly. This is Velociraptor Blue from the Amber collection. Very posable, just like the last one. Can move the tail and all the limbs. And of course, it's got the iconic blue stripe all the way down the body on both sides. This, I believe, is Velociraptor Echo. This is also from the Amber collection. It's got the light underbelly, a brown body with some darker striping, and the black top too. The next Velociraptor from the Amber collection is, I believe this one is called the Tiger Velociraptor. I can't quite remember. Let me know down in the comments if you remember. I also forgot to mention earlier that in all the Amber collection Velociraptors, you can actually move this claw up and down, just like real life. This last Velociraptor from the Amber collection is Velociraptor Charlie. This figure has a lime green body with darker green detailing all over its back and tail. It's got this headpiece attached to its head, and just like all the other ones, it is very posable and adjustable, and you can stand it in any way you want on your shelf. Let's see what other Velociraptor figures we got in here. I've got these smaller ones. This bright red Velociraptor is actually spring-loaded on its legs, so you can spring it up into the air, which is really cool. It's also got some pretty bright and awesome coloring too. This other Velociraptor is also spring-loaded in the legs, so you can spring it into the air, and it's also got some bright coloring too. And of course, I've got Velociraptor Blue in the smaller figure with battle damage on the side. Right over here, I've got some Jurassic Park Velociraptors. So these figures are some of the oldest in my collection. You can see the Jurassic Park tattoo on their legs on both of them, but they've both got some different coloring. This is an orange and red Velociraptor. And this one, which I'm sure you've seen before, is brown with the black striping all over its body. This Velociraptor is pretty normal looking. It's got the brown body, a little darker brown on the top, but my favorite part is that it's got some bright green eyes. This next Velociraptor figure is another spring-loaded leaping Velociraptor. This one is also super brightly colored. It's got the bright blue on the sides with the darker blue along the top. Here is another Velociraptor figure with muted colors. It's got the gray body with the dark blue detailing along the top and some soft orange eyes. This is another version of Velociraptor Blue, but this one is the spring-loaded leaping version. So just like the others that I've shown you, you can bend down on its legs and it'll spring up into the air if you let it go. And of course, it's got the iconic blue coloring. Here is a basic Velociraptor figure from Jurassic World. It's a lot larger, but the limbs cannot move as much, and it's not as versatile. Even the jaw cannot open and close. But it's still got some pretty cool coloring, the orange body, brown detailing, and yellow eyes. This is another basic figure from Jurassic World, but this is Velociraptor Blue. It's got the soft green-blue body with the iconic blue stripe down on both sides of its body, and the yellow eyes. You know what? I almost forgot these super colossal figures right here. This first Velociraptor is black around most of its body, but it's got this brown striping down the sides with some yellow speckling that's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's also a little bit on its arm as well. It's got some super amazing colored eyes, And of course, this super huge jaw that you can open up all the way to feed it miniature dinosaurs down to its stomach compartment. Way back here, we've got the super colossal Velociraptor blue figure. This super colossal figure is very similar to the Velociraptor that I just showed you. It's even got the same amazingly colored eyes. And of course, it's got the iconic blue stripe down both sides of its body, pretty adjustable with its limbs. And of course, it's got the stomach compartment down from its throat all the way down to its stomach, so you can feed it miniature dinosaurs. All right, I think that's it for all our Velociraptor figures. Now let's move to the Baryonyx figures right here in the center. The first one is the Baryonyx figure from the Hammond collection. So you'll see that this figure is very posable and adjustable with all its limbs. Plus, it's got a little more detail than most of the other Baryonyx figures. Next up, we've got the Baryonyx with the battle damage on its body. You can see a huge slash on its neck. It's got some on its leg as well. And I think that's the only battle damage that's shown on this figure. But it's also got the button on its back for the chomping. This is an older Baryonyx figure from Jurassic Park. So this figure is a lot older. And as you can see, it is designed quite a bit differently. But it also has an action that when you move the leg back and forth, the head twists. This is a brighter Baryonyx. It's got a light gray body with white, dark blue, and bright blue detailing on the top of its head. And this figure comes with a slide lever action for different roars and sound effects. This next Baryonyx figure is similar to the one that I opened up at the very beginning of the video, but it has a slightly more forest green color, and it has two tones of brown on the top. It's got the light brown in the back and the dark brown along its neck, and then the light brown right along the top of its head once again. This Baryonyx figure came out during the Fallen Kingdom era. It's got the light brown body with the blue detailing along the top and the super bright orange along the top of its head and nose. Here is another Baryonyx figure from the Jurassic Park series. So this figure, once again, is a lot older. It has the bright yellow underbelly and some light brown with black specks along the top. And like the other Jurassic Park Baryonyx that we saw earlier, it has the action that when you move its leg, its head twists back and forth. Here is our final Baryonyx of the bin. This figure has a light brown side and underbelly. It's got the dark blue detailing all along the top from the tail to the head, and it's got the bright blue reflective coloring right along the top of its head and nose too. There's only one more dinosaur left in the bin, and that is the Carnotaurus figures. Let's start with the super colossal Carnotaurus Toro figure. This figure has the iconic clay red sides with the lighter underbelly and the brown top. It's got the two huge horns on the top of its head. It's got a little bit of battle damage on the right side of its face. And of course, it's got a huge jaw that you can open up all the way to feed it miniature dinosaurs. This Carnotaurus figure is from the Fallen Kingdom era. It's got some darker red coloring with some purplish coloring along the top. And this Carnotaurus has a different action button than all the rest that I'll show you. It has a chomping action that moves its neck as well. This, I believe, is the Control and Conquer Carnotaurus. It has a much darker red, pretty much brown coloring along its body. It's got a gray underbelly and a dark brown top. And with this figure, the tail controls the neck so you can twist it back and forth, as well as the button on its tail for chomping. This next Carnotaurus, I believe, might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't quite remember. It's got a lighter red and slightly orange coloring along the side with the brown top and the gray underbelly. And this figure also has the tail that controls the head, as well as the button for chomping. I've also got some smaller Carnotaurus figures in here that are not from Jurassic World, but are a bit more generic. But they differ quite a bit more with the coloring. You can see that this one's got some green coloring with it. Still got the iconic horns though. And this figure has some bright orange along its face. You won't see that with the Jurassic World figures. And this figure looks a bit more like Jurassic World with the red and the spines. But this figure has some ginormous horns on the top of its head. That's really cool. Here we've got the Carnotaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's even got the broken horn on the top of its head. This figure is colored entirely different too. It's got the dark green body with the orange detailing along the top. So it looks like they started to mix it up for the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. And last of all, we've got the Jurassic World Chompin' Carnotaurus figure. This figure looks more like a baby Carnotaurus in a lot of ways. It's got some huge eyes that you can actually blink with by pressing the button on the top of its head. And it's got a button on the bottom of its tail for a chomping action. Welcome back. Today, we're checking out my entire display shelves of dinosaur figures from Jurassic World and more. Let's get started with this first shelf. Starting at the very top here, I've got this old Jurassic Park statue figure. I've also got this super colossal Carnotaurus Toro. I've got a Jurassic Park Jeep. This one came out pretty recently. I've also got a T-Rex skull from Jurassic World back there. And I've also got a Mosasaurus figure right at the very top. This is one of the big figures. And one of my favorite things about this middle shelf is this sign, just like from Jurassic Park. I think it looks really cool. We move down a shelf, you can see that I've got a lot of these smaller figures from Jurassic World. Some of these are Camp Cretaceous, some of them are Dominion, so I've got a whole mixture in here, but they're all Jurassic World. Over here on the right, I've got all my Monolophosaurus figures of all different colors. I've got some super bright ones, I've got some darker ones in the back. Right next to it are the Herrerasaurus figures. I think I have 3 on the display shelf right now. They're different colors. I've got a green one, I've got a light blue, and then I've got a dark green one way in the back there. Also hiding in the back there, I believe, is a Moros Intrepidus that you can recognize from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. Next up, I've got 3 Dimetrodons on display, all different colors. Got a light blue, I've got a bright green one. This is actually the Battle Damage edition that you can see on the side. And I've also got a darker brown green one in the back too. I believe this one is also from the Dominion series. And here on the left side, I've got a bunch of miniature Dilophosaurus figures of all different colors again. Got a soft green one right here. Here's a bright purple. This one's like a dark brown green color. I've also got a gray one right there as well. So I've got quite a few different types. And moving down a level, I've got all my Jurassic World T-Rex figures. Out of all the dinosaurs, I probably have the most T-Rexes. We've got this one that is the tearing T-Rex. We've got the Jurassic World Dominion figure right here in the back. Next, we have this bright green T-Rex. That's one of my favorites. I really like the coloring on this one. Right next to it is a Battle Damage T-Rex. You can see that there's some damage on its side and even on its face right there. Oh, and also a huge gash right on its chin too. Right behind it is a T-Rex of the same color, but a little bit bigger, and you can actually use its tail to control its jaw. Right next to it is one of my favorite figures of them all. This is the Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I really like it because of the detail with the coloring and the shading. It's so much more textured than a lot of the T-Rex figures. I mean, just compare the coloring and texturing of this figure, the Hammond Collection, to this one. This one has a lot more just like simple coloring and shading. It's still really cool, but the Hammond Collection is a lot more detailed. Right next to that, I've got a smaller T-Rex. This one is a brown-gray color. It has the button on the top of its head for the chomping and roaring. And right next to that one, I've actually got a larger T-Rex. This one comes with a face cage. It's not on it right now, obviously, but you can use the button on its back to break free from the cage. Right behind that one, kind of hidden, is a camouflage T-Rex. I don't even have enough space for all the T-Rex figures that I have. But this T-Rex has some awesome coloring as well. Look at that green, brown, and black. That one would blend into the jungle super well. Let's keep moving down a level. Next up, we've got my Scorpius Rex figures. We first got this one with 2 action buttons. One controls the arms and the other controls the jaw. And squished way in the back here, I've got another Scorpius Rex figure, but this is the basic edition. So you can move the arms, the legs, and the tail on this figure, but there's no action buttons and the mouth doesn't open and close. Right next to it, we've got the Indoraptor. This figure is super adjustable. It's got some red on its eyes. It's got the gold line right down its side. I've also got the basic figure of that as well. So the mouth doesn't open and close on this one. Still has the same cool coloring, and you can move the arms and the legs. And moving down the line, we've got the Majingasaurus right next to it. It's got a dark green color with yellow and blue. Right behind it is the Concavinator, with its iconic spine right on its back. I've also got the Seats Micurarum, I believe it's called. Look at these interesting big teeth on its bottom jaw that fit in right onto its top jaw, just like that. I've always liked that. Right behind that, I believe, is a Megaraptor. It's kind of hard to see. It's got a bright red body with the gray. This is the Rajasaurus with the horn on the top of its head and the spines right along the back of its neck. I've also got a Tarbosaurus figure. There's the Therizinosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. And on the left side over here, I've got an Irritator from Jurassic World. I've also got a couple Cryolophosauruses. In the back here is a Yangchuanosaurus. It's bright green with the brown on the top and the red frills right on the top of its head. And at the very end here, I've got a few Carcharodontosaurus figures. This one, I believe, came with the face cage that you can press the button on its back. Let's see if I can reach it here. To break its head free. All right, let's move down to the final level of this first shelf. I've got the Jurassic World Dominion Super Colossal T-Rex. It's got the dark brown color with the black on top. And the stomach compartment, like all the other ones, so you can feed it small dinosaurs. I've also got the Super Colossal Velociraptor that was released quite a while ago, I believe. This one looks really cool. And I've actually got another Carnotaurus Toro at the bottom as well. And that is it for the first shelf in the middle. Let's move on to this shelf to the right. Let's check out all these other Jurassic World figures. First, right at the top here, I've got another Super Colossal T-Rex. This figure is the orange and tan one. And of course, it has the stomach compartment, just like all the Super Colossal figures. Right beside it, we've got a Dr. Alan Grant figure holding a Dimetrodon skull, I believe. Also got a Velociraptor skull right here and a Jurassic Park little setup right here too, which is pretty cool. Moving down a level, we've got some herbivore figures from Jurassic World and then some more carnivore figures as well. Most of these are Velociraptors, but we'll get to that. Over here on this side, I've got a variety of herbivores. Like we've got the baby Ankylosaurus figure, we've got a baby Brachiosaurus right there in the back. Over here, I believe that's a Stygimoloch figure, and this might be a baby Stygimoloch figure, I think. There's also a Minmi figure that is dark red, and right behind it, I think, a Pachycephalosaurus figure. And then next up, I've got a ton of Velociraptor figures. These ones on the very right here are the spring-loaded Velociraptors that can actually jump up into the air. So you can actually press down on their legs and then release it and they'll spring up into the air, and they're all built that same way. And then all these Velociraptor figures come from various sets. I've got a bright red Velociraptor here. This Velociraptor is actually an extreme battle damage one that I got recently. You can check out the battle damage right there on the side. And they come in a variety of colors. I've got green, I've got gray, I've got brown, and I've even got a bright red one right here. Oh, you know what? This one is actually a spring-loaded Velociraptor as well. Let's move down a level to some more gigantic dinosaur figures. I've got all my Indominus Rex figurines right here from Jurassic World. This first one is the battle damaged Indominus Rex that you can turn on and off. It comes with sound effects. This one is actually a custom colored Indominus Rex, so you won't see one with this coloring around anywhere else. This Indominus Rex comes with the jaw chomping action on its tail and also a arm slashing action with a button on its back. And I've also got this little Indominus Rex figure that has a couple actions as well. You can press a button on top of its head for sound effects, and then you can open and close the jaw with the tail and by pressing down on its tongue. Right next to that are my Giganotosaurus figures. I don't have that many yet. This big one in the back here is the Strike and Roar Giganotosaurus. So it swings its torso back and forth. It can also chomp on little dinosaur figures. This little one is the Sound Surge Giganotosaurus. So a lot smaller and not as detailed, but it does come with sound effects. And right next to that are all my Carnotaurus figures. I've got one from the Jurassic World Dominion movie. It's got the unique coloring and the broken horn. I've got 3 large-size Carnotaurus figures. All of them have the action buttons, and they're all colored differently. And then, of course, I've got a little Carnotaurus figure that can blink its eyes and also chomp using a button on its tail. Alright, that's all the figures on this shelf. Let's move down one more level. I've got a ton of herbivores here, and then more carnivores right over here. Let's start with the herbivores. So most of these figures are species related to the Triceratops, which I've already got 1, 2, 3 on display over here. I've also got the Pseudoceratops in the back over here. And I've also got a Sinoceratops figure right up front here, and another figure that I can't remember the species of right now. Moving on to the left, I've got the Pentaceratops figure with the head cage that you can break free from, and also an Ouranosaurus figure right in the back here. This figure right next to it, I believe is an Amargospinus. I can't remember though. Let me know down in the comments if you know which dinosaur this is. And then finally, I've got some more carnivore figures. I've got the Suchomimus figures right here. One of them is a bright yellow, the other is a dark blue with yellow. I've also got the basic edition Velociraptor blue and a few basic Dilophosaurus figures here. Got the soft green with red Dilophosaurus, and then a bright red and yellow Dilophosaurus. Over here in the back, actually, I forgot to mention, this is an Ankylosaurus. This one I got pretty recently, and this basic figure, I can't remember what species it is, but let me know down in the comments if you recognize this species. And hidden way in the back over here, I've got a little Atrociraptor figure and also a Dilophosaurus figure as well. All right, that's it for this level. Let's move down back to some more super colossal figures. This one is a blue-gray color with those blood red eyes, which I really like. I think this one might have been custom colored, but I can't quite remember. I'm pretty sure it is. Right next to that, I've got a big Brachiosaurus figure. You can open and close its mouth, you can adjust the neck and the legs as well. And right next to that, I've got another super colossal T-Rex. This one has some pretty awesome coloring as well. It's got the camouflaged green, it's got some battle damage on its side, and it's got some awesome orange and gold eyes. That's it for this shelf. Now let's move on to the next shelf to the right. Way at the very top, I've got an Apatosaurus gigantic figure. There's also a huge King Kong figurine. I've also got an old Jurassic Park Jeep and an RC Velociraptor Blue. Moving down a level, I've got a ton more Jurassic World herbivore figures. Got more Brachiosauruses, I've got the battle damage Triceratops, another Minmi, got tons more in the back over there. I've got a Miragaia with the huge horns on its shoulder. I've got this figure, I can't remember what species this is, but this is a pretty funky looking dinosaur. I've got more Pachycephalosaurus figures in the back, a Parasaurolophus right there in the middle. I've got a Protoceratops figure right there, and a Sauropelta that is the clay red and brown color too. Moving on from there, we've got many of my oldest Jurassic World figurines next. We've got the hybrid Indominus Rex figure with the gold on its hands and on its belly, and the red, and the spikes that come out of its back. We've also got this super old Indominus Rex figure. It's got the rubber head and neck, and the plastic torso and tail. It's really interesting that they used to create these dinosaurs out of rubber. They feel so weird, and they don't last as long, as you'll notice. I've also got a few smaller Indominus Rex figures. This one is tiny. It's got a little bit of battle damage on the side, and you can use the tail to control the head. And on this figure, a slightly larger Indominus Rex, it's got bigger battle damage on the side that you can open and close, and you can use the tail to chomp the jaw too. Right beside that, I've got a variety of T-Rex figures from the old Jurassic World line. Got this light tan T-Rex, got the button on its back to activate the jaw. Right beside that is a larger chomping T-Rex. This one also has a rubberized neck. And beside that, I've got some smaller T-Rex figures. This one on the right is a custom colored T-Rex, but it's the exact same as this tan one right over here. And I've also got this hybrid T-Rex right here. I'm not sure what it's a hybrid with, but it's got some spines that pop out on its back, which is pretty cool. On the next level, I've got more old Jurassic World figurines of all different varieties. I've got a little Mosasaurus figure right here. I've got some Spinosaurus figures. I've got a Dilophosaurus. Over here are a few Ankylosaurus figures. This one actually has a removable shell that you can take off its back. And then I've got a variety of T-Rexes, Triceratops, and even a Ceratosaurus in the back right over there. My favorite one on this shelf is probably this hybrid T-Rex Dilophosaurus figure. It's bright orange and it's got some gold on it as well. And on the final level of this shelf, I've got more giant herbivore figures from Jurassic World. I've got a huge variety of Stegosaurus figures. I've got a brown, blue, green, and a dark gray blue one. I think that's an Iguanodon. I've got a Kentrosaurus. Got a few Parasaurolophuses. I've got more Ankylosauruses. I can't remember what species this one is. And I've also got some Sarcophagus figures. All right, that's it for this shelf. Now let's move over to the left here and tackle this giant shelf right here. Right at the top, I've got a huge Godzilla figure. This thing was expensive, let me tell you. I've also got a super colossal Atrociraptor figure. I've got a Ceratosaurus skull and another Mosasaurus, but this figure is actually a bit older than the giant one that I showed you over to the right. Right below that, I've got a few more miniature carnivore figures. I've got Atrociraptor figures right here, and I can't remember the name of these species actually. Right next to those, I've got some Hammond Collection and Amber Collection, Velociraptors, and Baryonyxes, and even a few more too. I've got tons of the Amber Collection Velociraptors, as you can see right here. Over here on the right, I've got the Hammond Collection Baryonyx, and way over here on the left, I've got I think this is the Hammond Collection Parasaurolophus. It's got some pretty cool coloring on its back too. On the next level, I've got some more giant Jurassic World figures. Over here, I've got my Spinosaurus collection. I believe this one is the Extreme Chompin' Spinosaurus. I've also got what I think is a custom colored Spinosaurus figure. It's got some really unique coloring. And then of course the Camp Cretaceous Spinosaurus and a basic Spinosaurus right here. I've also got some more T-Rex figures that are a continuation of the T-Rexes that I showed you earlier. Got this orange T-Rex, extreme battle damage T-Rex, sound surge. I've got some baby T-Rexes right there. Here is a custom colored T-Rex and one of the classic T-Rexes, one of my favorites that you can control by pressing a button on its tail. Next up, I've got a ton more Jurassic World carnivore figures. Starting here on the left are Ceratosaurus figures from Camp Cretaceous and more. I've got a ton of Baryonyx figures. Some of them are battle damage, some of them are extreme chompin', or the other series, there's a ton in there. I've also got quite a few Allosaurus figures of differing colors. You can see that these two are slightly tan with blue tops. I've got a dark green one right there, and I've also got this gray-yellow Allosaurus figure in the back too. Right next to those are a couple of Metriacanthosaurus figures. I've got bright red, and then a yellow and green one, and some Albertosaurus figures too. One in the back is an extreme battle damage. You can see on its side right there. And they are both a green with some red or orange detailing. And at the bottom layer, here are some of my final super colossal figures. This is Velociraptor Blue, also with the stomach compartment. I've also got an Indominus Rex figure with some giant teeth in its mouth. Here is a custom colored Tyrannosaurus Rex super colossal figure, and this figure is actually colored pretty similarly to the figure right up there, which is pretty cool. And I've actually got another Brachiosaurus figure. That is it for this shelf. Now it's time to move on to the final shelf right here that has some of my rarest figures. So let's start at the top shelf with this giant Mecha Godzilla figure. I don't have that many Godzilla or King Kong figures on display right now, but this is one of the few ones. Right next to that is a super colossal Giganotosaurus with the classic green coloring and the giant spine right on its back. On the top shelf is also this Jeep playset, and it actually comes with a rocket on its side. It doesn't have the rockets in it right now. And I've got this classic Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus figure too. On the next shelf, like I said, are some of my rarest figures on this one and this one because they are my Jurassic Park figurines. So these are all discontinued and you can't buy them new anymore. And some of them are actually really expensive to buy used on eBay or whatever the case is. So on this shelf, I've got a variety of herbivores and carnivores like the Pachycephalosaurus. I've got a baby dinosaur. I believe this is an Allosaurus. It's actually got battle damage. Triceratops. I've got a big raptor in the back. Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Parasaurolophus, and a Utah raptor right on the edge here. On the next shelf, more of some rare figures. This is the Amargospinus. I've got the Chasmosaurus. This is a baby Triceratops. Got a few old Baryonyx figures from Jurassic Park. There's the Spinosaurus and tons more, even these raptors right there as well. And interestingly, Jurassic Park released a Dilophosaurus that did not have the frills. So this is actually one of the first Jurassic Park figurines. As you can see, it is JP02. How cool is that? I've also got a variety of figurines from the Jurassic Park toy line and this Jeep as well. There is Dr. Alan Grant right in the middle there. I've also got some Ian Malcolm figurines as well. And right next to that, I've got one of the old Jurassic Park T-Rex figurines. And this has an all rubber body aside from the arms and the feet at the bottom. And on these bottom two shelves right here, I've got a variety of more dinosaur figures that are not from Jurassic World, but from toy brands like Papo. Got a variety of Tyrannosaurus Rex figures right here. Got a Therizinosaurus. I've got a few Giganotosaurus figures. This one was extremely expensive to get. And even an Indominus Rex figure right here at the end too. On this lower shelf here, I've got more of a variety. Here are a variety of Carnotaurus figures of different colors and sizes. I've also got some Endoraptor figures, which are pretty uncommon for toy brands that are not Jurassic World. There's not that many out there. I've also got a few Spinosaurus figures and some other herbivore figures right here as well. Today, I'm going to be showing you my collection of Stegosaurus, Dilophosaurus, and Baryonyx figures, and putting them up on this empty space on my shelf. I've even got a brand new set to unbox, but first of all, I want to show you something I've never shown before. This is a vintage Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus statue. It's got a huge frill, and it's even got some plants at the base of it too. This is really cool, super old, and I'm gonna put this right here on this top shelf. Let's go ahead and dig into the rest of my Dilophosaurus figures. This first one is the basic red Dilophosaurus. You can actually open and close the frills, and it's got a huge yellow crown on the top of its head. So let's put this Dilophosaurus right over here on the Dilophosaurus shelf. Next up, I've got another basic but giant Dilophosaurus figure. This one is the teal green blue coloring with the bright red frills in the front and the bright red crown on the very top. Let's go ahead and put this next to my other giant basic Dilophosaurus figure. It's looking good already. Let's see what other Dilophosaurus figures I have in here. This one is another vintage figure. This is a Dilophosaurus without the frills, which I think is pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and set this one down on the shelf as well. Right over here, we've got a miniature Dilophosaurus figure with bright yellow and red frills, and it's got the green body as well. That's really cool. It's pretty small, but you can still open and close the frills too. And let's set this down right next to the other one. Next up is a gray Dilophosaurus with red and white on its frills. And this Dilophosaurus actually has an action that when you pull up on the tail, it'll open its mouth and open its frills too. Let's go ahead and set down this Dilophosaurus too. Next up is a bright purple Dilophosaurus with red, yellow, orange all over its frills and some red on its body as well. This figure is a little bit bigger, but it doesn't have any action buttons to activate the jaws or the frills. Let's see if we can fit this Dilophosaurus right in between the two large ones. Perfect. Right over here, we've got a green, orange, and yellow Dilophosaurus, and this one actually has the lever action that'll open its mouth and its frills. Look how fast that is too, that's really cool. Let's set this Dilophosaurus down right on the end here. Two more Dilophosauruses to go. Here is a dark green and black one, and it's got super bright red on its frills. And this figure is actually one of the new Jurassic World Dominion Dilophosauruses. So this is probably one of my most recent Dilophosaurus figures. And our last Dilophosaurus is another mini green Dilophosaurus, but this one has brown on its back, and it's got red and yellow on its frills too. This is looking great so far. All right, let's move on to the Stegosauruses. But first, let's actually open up this brand new Jurassic World set. This is the Dr. Sarah Harding and Stegosaurus pack. And the box is even designed to look like a truck, which is really cool. All right, so this set comes with 3 figures. It's first got the giant Stegosaurus figure with some pretty unique coloring. I don't have one with this coloring yet. It's also got a baby Stegosaurus right there, and of course, Dr. Sarah Harding on the side. Let's check out the giant Stegosaurus first. So it looks about the same as many of the other Stegosaurus figures, but it has this clay red coloring on the top, and then the green on the sides, and then a brown underbelly, which is really cool. And like many of the Stegosaurus figures, it has an action that when you press down here, it swings its tail back and forth. Next up is the baby Stegosaurus figure. It has similar coloring as the adult. It's got the green on the sides and the brown underbelly and the red on top, but is a whole lot smaller. And look at that, even the spikes on its tail are a lot smaller too. That's pretty cute. And here is Dr. Sarah Harding. She's even got a camera wrapped around her neck as well. It's pretty cool, taking photos of the Stegosauruses.
Bingo!
Let's put Dr. Harding and the baby Stegosaurus right next to the Dilophosaurus figures. This is where our Stegosaurus domain will start. And let's put the adult Stegosaurus right next to them. Look how big this Stegosaurus is in comparison to this baby Stegosaurus. All right, let's get the rest of these Stegosauruses up here. This first one is a vintage Jurassic Park Stegosaurus with a huge battle damage on its shoulder. And it's even got some similar coloring as to the Stegosauruses that I just opened up as well. So why don't we put this one right next to that one. Moving right along, we've got a light blue and green Stegosaurus figure. It's got some pretty good detailing on its side. It's got the darker green on the top. And this figure also has the action that swings its tail back and forth. Well, it looks like we're out of room on this shelf, so why don't we move down to this other shelf that I cleared out to make space. Right here, we've got a dark gray blue Stegosaurus with a light pink underbelly. It's totally different coloring, but this figure also has that same action that when you press down on its back, it swings its tail back and forth. 2 more Stegosauruses to go. Here is a green, brown, and tan Stegosaurus, and this one has a slightly different action. It still swings with its tail, but it actually swings its entire back torso, so it's different from the other Stegosaurus figures. So it's a pretty cool feature. Let's set this down right next to these other Stegosauruses. And here is the final Stegosaurus. It's got a light underbelly with brown on the sides and tan and green on the top. That is different from all the other ones that I have up here still. So let's set this one down right here at the end of the line. All right, that's all my Stegosauruses. Now, it's time for the final dinosaur, the Baryonyx figures. Let's start with this one right up front here. This is a battle damaged Baryonyx with the brown and dark gray blue coloring on the top. Let's set this Baryonyx down right next to the Stegosauruses, and the rest of this shelf will be for only the Baryonyxes. Let's see what we've got next. Here is another battle damaged Baryonyx. This one is actually the same as this one, so we're gonna put it in the back right here. Next up, we've got a bright green and brown Baryonyx, and of course it's got a button on its back to activate the jaw. Let's put this down right here on our Baryonyx shelf. Here is another Baryonyx figure, but this one has lighter green coloring, and it has only one shade of brown on its head. Plus, this figure has a slide lever action to activate the jaw and sound effects. Let's put this figure down right next to our other green Baryonyx. We've got another dark green Baryonyx figure here. This one is, I think, the same as the first green Baryonyx. So we're just gonna put this down in the back here. Next up, we've got a gray, dark blue, and light blue Baryonyx with the slide lever action on its back, so you can get a ton of different sound effects. This is the first gray Baryonyx figure on the shelf, so we're gonna put it right up front here. Here is the Hammond Collection Baryonyx. So this one has a bit more detailing and a whole lot more points of articulation on its body. This one is super posable. I really like this one, so why don't we put this on the front of the shelf as well. And this is our final large Baryonyx of the bin. This one has some super bright blue reflective paint on the top of its head, which I think is a really cool detail. And let's set this big Baryonyx down in the back here. And our last two Baryonyxes of the bin are these vintage Jurassic Park Baryonyx figures. These ones are totally different from the new Baryonyx figures that Mattel is releasing now. Look how different in size they are, but I'm gonna place this one right up front here. And let's grab our other vintage Jurassic Park Baryonyx and place it down right in front next to the other old Jurassic Park Baryonyx. And that is it. My new shelf displays are complete. I've got the Dilophosauruses, Stegosauruses, and finally the Baryonyxes. Want to see more dino videos? Click the subscribe button now.